Hello again, guys. Welcome to our channel. I'm by myself again. The love of my life, Joyce, is hard at work. Today I'm going to talk about the Blue Note label, Dave Brubeck, and show you how I package my records that I mail out. Okay, let's get started. The Blue Note record label was founded in 1939 by a German immigrant, Alfred Lion. He dedicated most of his vinyl to traditional and swing jazz groups. In the beginning, they were on 78 shellac. By 1947, he went to modern jazz. In 1951, they started pressing a 10-inch vinyl. And in 1956, they went to the long play 12-inch vinyl. Here's one here. It was Micro Groove Records with the company's sleeve art. Photographer Francis Wolff took all the pictures of the musicians, and Reed Miles did the graphic design, creating iconic sleeve art, which remains important to collectors today. The recording engineer Rudy Van Gelder recorded most of the Blue Note recordings from 1953 to the late 60s. His skills were revolutionary and used leading-edge methods, always seeking out the best microphones and pushing them to the limits. His skills were equally transferring from the tape to acetate masters. All pre-1966 records were pressed at the Plasti-Tape Corp pressing plant in New Jersey. All the pressings have a P in the write-out, so you can tell them apart from the later pressings. These were the audiophile gems that we prize today. There were over 800 original pressings during this period, mostly hard pop, but also some soul jazz and free jazz. In 1966, Liberty Records bought Blue Note, and in 1970, United Artists bought Liberty Records. During the 70s, they still pressed vinyl, but they eventually flattered. Then in the early 70s, they licensed their whole library to the King Records in Japan, which reissued everything for the Japanese market. They have some old unissued recordings that they found in the vault. They pressed those too. In 1979, EMI bought Blue Note. Many Blue Note albums from the pre-66 era are considered the finest jazz recordings of all time. Thanks. Okay, I'm going to talk about Dave Brubeck now. He was an American jazz pianist and composer, considered one of the pioneers of cool jazz. His playing style ranged from classical to improv. His music known for using unusual time signatures, as well as using contrasting rhythms, meters, and tones. Different time signatures like 7/4, 13/4, and 9/8. He has also written orchestral music and TV series soundtracks, notably Charlie Brown. In 1951, he was involved in a diving accident in Hawaii, which damaged his spinal cord. He had residual nerve damage to his hands. The injury influenced his playing style towards complex blocking chords rather than high single-note runs. In 1951, he organized the Dave Brubeck Quartet with Paul Desmond on alto sax. He released numerous albums in the early 50s. He also played a long stint at the Black Hawk nightclub in San Francisco. In 1956, Joe Morello joined as the drummer, and in 1958, African-American Eugene Wright as the stand-up bass player. This made out the famous quartet. In 1959, he released Time Out. They were all original compositions, but none with normal time signatures. The album was inspired by Eurasian folk music they heard on their European tour. It was the first jazz album to sell over 1 million copies. Songs like Take 5 and Blue Rondo a la Turk He had released 6 albums by 1966. The last album of the original quartet was in 1967. He continued playing throughout the 70s, playing with his new quartet with Jerry Mulligan and Joe Morello. He still performed all the way into his late 80s. He passed away in December of 2012 at 92 years old. Thanks.